It feels like the whole world is at this huge turning point where the old rules just don't seem to apply anymore. So today, we're going to dive into a really provocative argument about what all this means for the Arab world and the massive choices it's now facing.
And that brings us to this really powerful quote, which was reportedly said at Davos. It just perfectly captures the high-stakes moment we're in. The old certainties, they're gone. And for nations everywhere, the choice is pretty simple. Are you going to help shape the future, or is the future going to shape you?
So that's the big question hanging over everything, right? When it comes to the Arab world, which one is it? Are these states really forging their own path in this new era, or are they getting caught up in currents that are bigger than them? Let's take a look.
Okay, so to figure out what's coming next, we have to look at what's falling apart. The author we're looking at argues that the whole rules-based international order, the system that's pretty much run global politics for decades, is, for all intents and purposes, over.
But here's the thing. The author argues this isn't some accident or a simple system failure. It's more like a blunt admission that the system was never really as fair as it was made out to be. The so-called rules were kind of designed from the get-go to keep a very specific power structure in place.
So, okay, if that old system is gone, what are we left with? Well, the source argues that U.S. policy hasn't really changed its core goals, but the mask has come off. It's shedding all that diplomatic language for a much more direct, here's our power kind of approach. And you can really see this shift in the language being used. It's a total pivot away from words like rules-based and multilateral, all that talk of cooperation. Now the language is all about strength, coercive, power first, and basically, might makes right. The quiet part is being said out loud now.
And look, this isn't just talk. The author points to some pretty clear strategic goals that show this mindset in action. It's all about controlling vital energy routes, making sure no rival powers can get a foothold in the region, and, this is key, treating international law not as a constraint, but as a tool you use only when it helps you.
All right, so that's the big picture of this unmasked power, but how are Arab states actually playing their hand in all this? Well, it's complicated. It's full of contradictions that make it really tough to see one clear direction.
So on one side, you see these really bold moves that look a lot like independence. You've got major players like Saudi Arabia, rebuilding ties with Iran, strengthening partnerships with Turkey. It really looks like the region is starting to build its own thing on its own terms.
But then you flip the coin and you see this. Huge investments still going to Washington. Regional security is still deeply, deeply tied into the U.S. military framework. The author kind of suggests that maybe some of those independent moves are actually just clever tactical shifts that end up strengthening the old system anyway.
Okay, so we have all these conflicting signals. Independence here, dependence there. How on earth do you figure out what's really going on? Well, the author offers up a single, really powerful way to cut through all the noise.
Yeah? How do we find the real answer? Is there one clear sign that tells us which way the wind is truly blowing? We need some way to get past all the ambiguity.
And that's where this idea of a litmus test comes in. It's like in chemistry. One single factor that tells you everything you need to know about the whole situation. It's a way to get a clear, decisive answer about where a country's real priorities are. So, what is that test? According to this author, it all comes down to one thing: Palestine. And here's why that's the test. It's all about the gap between what's said and what's done. On paper, officially, organizations like the Arab League are constantly saying that a Palestinian state is essential for the region. But the author says, just look at the reality. There's a total lack of unified, decisive, collective action to actually make that happen. And that gap leads right to the author's big conclusion. That inability to turn all that vocal support into concrete, hard policy, that's the proof that a real, fundamental break with the old US-centric system just hasn't happened yet. The region, in the author's view, isn't truly at the table.
But the analysis doesn't just leave us there. After diagnosing the problem, the author actually lays out a vision for what a different, maybe more just future could look like.
And this path is, it's a huge vision. It's not just about small tweaks. We're talking about completely redesigning the system so that all states, big and small, get an equal say. It imagines new alliances, like between middle powers and the global south. The whole idea is to build this massive coalition that includes everyone, from a major power like China to a cause like Palestine.
So, what's really at stake here? According to the source, this goes way beyond one single issue. It's really about the sovereignty of any nation trying to forge its own independent path, free from that might makes right logic.
And that leaves us right here. with this final, massive question. In a world where all the old rules seem to be gone, what does it actually take to build something truly new, instead of just a more intense version of the old system? And maybe more importantly, who's going to step up and do it?